Well, what stopped the mob? Because this is literally what we're dealing with. They own the judges, they own the courts, they own the justice system. Let's be blunt here. We have not seen justice in a long time in America when it comes to these politicians. So the one thing that stopped the mob was RICO, the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act. Now, what is unique about RICO, there's two RICOs, civil RICO and criminal RICO. You're wasting your time if you look into criminal RICO because Eric Holder will shut you down. But civil RICO is a completely different beast because you're filing a suit against an individual. Let me give you a quick example of how RICO works. Do you remember when they had all that corruption at the LAPD, the Los Angeles Police Department? I think that was back in the 80s. Do you remember that?
Yeah, right.
Well, you couldn't go after the entire LAPD. But what the person did, they filed civil RICO suits against the dirty cops, the bad cops. And that's how he obtained the evidence through discovery and was able to hold them accountable. And it's also under civil RICO, the damages are triple because that's the way that it works. So in the case of the IRS, for example, you have all these groups that have been targeted. You have a name of someone at the IRS. You can file a civil RICO suit. And all of a sudden, when they're held accountable, they're going to start talking. Because you know what? They're just following orders. But that's not going to protect them. And so instead of going up, working at the top, you start at the bottom and you work your way up. Because right now, there is no incentive for people in government. And there are good people in government. I don't want to, broad stroke people. There are some good people who are trying to do the right thing. But for those who are, playing for team keep my job, all of a sudden when your job is in jeopardy because of a civil RICO suit, the game's going to change and they're going to start talking. And the American people can do it. You can bypass the corruption in Washington and start now. So I would encourage you, find civil RICO lawyers and look into it. I mean, there are laws about has the government deprived you of your rights? There are actual laws on the books. Use them. Don't wait for some politician to fix this. That's not going to happen.
Well, you're certainly not going to get Eric Withholder to. The fact that the president is the one that actually appoints the attorney general has never made any sense to me. It's sort of like it goes back to even Thomas Jefferson saying, "Well, wait a minute, we're gonna have the Supreme Court. We're gonna have 9 people who have jobs for life that are going to be appointed by the politicians to sit in judgment that whatever they say happens is what the Constitution is supposed to mean." And Thomas Jefferson saying, "Well, how is that sane?" Well, so yeah. who is going to do this? I mean, obviously you're going to have to get Eric Withholder, who's the biggest crook on Capitol Hill, to be able to enforce any of this.
Not civil. That's in criminal cases. I'm referring to civil RICO. So you're not dealing with Eric Holder. It could eventually turn into a criminal, but that would be way down the road, and who knows, who's going to be in power at that time.
Right.
But the evidence that you obtain in civil RICO suits, Eric Holder can't shut down. It's definitely worth a shot. You see all these other things that people are doing and having rallies. Stop wasting your time and money on rallies. Put together, everyone that's been targeted by the IRS should be looking for a RICO lawyer and start filing civil RICO suits.
Right. Wow.
It's worked before, it can work again. Because if you're waiting, I've been covering the politics for too long. I haven't seen justice. Wouldn't it be glorious to see some justice? It's up to the American people. Do not wait for your politicians. And there's also another maybe, and that's recall, which was successfully done in Colorado. They got rid of some politicians there under recall. So between RICO and
All right, Dwayne, you can talk now. It's done, okay?